Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
I am just considering how autonomy in my job. I am a communication skill consultant for my clients. I work with them how to communicate better in English and how to do this management of a global career in their lives. And I deal with lots of interviews that they have to go through to look for a company where they can work at that can provide more value to them, in a sense that they don't even know what they are exactly looking for. They come to me saying that maybe in their career, if they speak English well, they could have more opportunities. And then I ask questions about the kind of opportunities that they have been looking for, and people rarely have a very precise answer of what their expectation towards their jobs are beforehand having any conversation with anybody else that potentially would hire them for a job. My job here is to clarify and have ideas in their minds that are, first of all, clear enough for themselves. Then we look for a match. And then the matching that we have been looking for in the market is most of the time some like a kind of a path that they have never thought of, because they look at their job descriptions and they start to tick whatever they have from the expectation of the person or the company who is about to hire them, or potentially you will hire them. But when I present this absolutely opposite way of understanding themselves and having self-awareness and communication techniques and a bunch, like a set of skills that will probably be valued by anybody that we don't know yet who is, we start to do this matching much more, in my opinion, smartly than if we just start to check what they expect from the people that are looking for jobs or looking for better opportunities. When I am here with you listening to the conversation that you have presented to us, I just think about how much of fear there is in the market, in my local market, which is very in need of lots of basic needs. People work in most of the poor countries in the planet because they absolutely need to have any kind of resource to basically many times cope with the survival premises. When we talk
Yes.
about looking for happiness at the workplace or in a career, or even having this idea that I have a calling, not a job, sometimes it seems very far from these more present idea every single day in the mind about the bills to be paid. I would like to ask you guys how much of how much you struggle with the barriers of survival needs up to the moment that we start to talk about happiness, not even feeling ashamed of talking about happiness when people are majoritarily looking for how to survive, especially in poor countries as mine. That's my question.
Thank you, Teresa.
Thank you.
I'm also interested in Tal's answer to this, because I love this question, because one of the things that I can say definitively from the field of research that I'm in is that for people for whom work is a means of economic survival, and that is the primary focus that they have, is finding some way to be able to take care of the basics of life through their work, and that is an effort and a process that's ongoing. There's evidence to suggest that though that is kind of very salient and front of mind, in terms of the kinds of things people want to experience from their work, the kind of relationship they would like to have with their work, that does not vary as a property of financial need or education or training. And I often have the experience with my students where they will say sometimes, and they don't know, I think they don't fully appreciate what they're doing when they say it, when they say, well, but people in those kinds of jobs don't care about XYZ. They just care about the paycheck. And the reality is quite a bit more extreme, which is though the paycheck is absolutely essential and they need to focus greatly, right, on where the next paycheck is coming from and is it enough to cover the basic needs of living and so on. In terms of if you survey and collect data from those populations, what they want and seek from the work is not that different from what the students who are sitting in those seats are seeking from the kind of work they want to do. And for me, the implication of that is, given a magic wand, what I would hope for everyone is that the work that they did paid enough for them to not have to worry as much about their financial stability or ability to survive. And that within that, given that people are often seeking the very same things from the work that they're doing, regardless of where they are in a socioeconomic hierarchy, what can we do to imbue work with more of the kinds of elements that allow people to find meaning in the work that they do, to allow them to see themselves as a person who is held in esteem in the society that they work in? And that's my response to that first question. And to your first point, I just want to say, I think there's a lot of wisdom when someone is in a job search to think about, well, what if you could write? Forget the market out there, forget the postings, forget who's hiring. If you could write what it is that you most want to do, whether that's a target or a focus of an industry or an effort that you want to get involved in, or whether that's just, I don't care what industry it is, I want to do work that involves the following kinds of activities. Starting from there gives people much more of a shot of authoring an experience of work or finding the kind of work that is going to be more motivating and more sustaining of them as people in the long term. Job crafting is a bit different because it takes the job as a starting point. You have to kind of already be in the job and know the guts of the job and the outlines of the job to think about how would you revise those. But for a job search, and certainly for students, getting them to think about if you could just write anything about what it is that you'd be doing or what you'd be involved in because it matters to you, why not start there and then see if you can make that happen as opposed to pulling down applications from things that are being offered?
Thank you for the question and for the answer. I just want to say a couple of things about responding to Teresa and also commenting on what you said, Amy. So I'm often asked a similar question when I talk about a sense of meaning and purpose as being so central to a happy life. And when I talk about finding meaning at work, people say, but what about? And I can't tell you how many times I got this very specific example. What about a single mom who holds 3 jobs? How can you talk about her about finding calling in the workplace? And Amy, your answer is spot on. I must say that's not the answer I usually give, but it's spot on because these things of relationships or a sense of meaning from contribution very often are not socioeconomic dependent. You can't find, and that's why your first study was on janitors in hospitals, not in the medical doctors. You replicated it with the medical doctors, but you first started with the janitors. That's very, very important. The other thing that I would add to it is that, and this is a mantra that I repeat a million times to my students and to myself, is small changes make a big difference when consistently applied. Even if that single mom with 3 jobs finds 2 hours a week of something that is really meaningful and purposeful for her, these 2 hours will have a trickle effect, both on what comes before, because she's looking forward to it, and what comes after, because she's energized by it.
Yes.
And in the same way that calling, purpose, passion is contagious outward, and it has a trickle effect to other people, it's also contagious inward, in that it affects what comes before and what comes after.
I think that's beautiful. And I think one of the things, to just for a moment go back to the hospital janitors, that we found was, in other work that we've published, Jane and Galai and I, we found that they were subjected to many interactions in the hospital that were enormously devaluing of them as people, of the work that they were doing, of the role that they played there. And within that context, where some very painful things would happen to them, given how status arranged hospital systems tend to be, what they were finding was in these interactions with patients, in these interactions with visitors, they were someone who represented the hospital. They were someone who worked for the hospital and were part of the team that was there for the patients and visitors, and were often treated and interacted with in a way that was highly valuing and affirming of their humanity, of the contribution they were making, of the things that they were able to do to help others. And so it was even the small move of moving yourself away from aversive interactions where you had the ability to do that and move yourself more into the space of interactions that would affirm your humanity and affirm the fact that you are making a difference for people who really need your help and need your involvement was a small thing, as you put it, as you say, but made a profound difference for their experience of not just showing up for the job, but how they thought of themselves in that role.
Beautiful. Thank you.